In Yu-Gi-Oh! ZEXAL, our protagonists Yuma Tsukumo and Astral search for all 100 number cards, which have been split apart from Astral throughout the duration of the series. Now initially Astral said that they had split upon impact when he crash landed on Yuma, or crash landed on Earth right next to Yuma, after Yuma had opened the door of destiny. Now, the story changed about halfway through when we got to Season 2 for the English dub. The story changed that only 50 numbers had been split apart there, and that 50 numbers had been split during Astral's duel with Dawn Thousand eons ago. Dawn Thousand comments in episode 140 that the first 50 numbers split were fragments of Astral's power, and included in that were the 7 Matherian numbers which sealed Dawn Thousand away. Now the second split numbers, as seen at the beginning of the series, were 50 fragments of Astral's memory, not his power. Meanwhile, in the manga, all 100 numbers stick to the original story that they are all fragments of his memory, not fragments of his power. Nevertheless, it is my goal to show how all 100 numbers fit into this first split, second split theory of being either from his power or from his memories, as well as which 50 numbers he had at the end of Season 1 after the conclusion of the World Duel Carnival defeating Dr. Faker. Now why is this significant? Well, because in Dawn Thousand's comments, when he talks about the 50 numbers of Astral's power, he says that all 50 of these are required to access the Numeron code. Now, of course, this changes a bit when he merges Earth with Barian World and is able to gain access to it regardless. But still, his initial comment was that he was focused on collecting all 50, so the question becomes which 50 numbers would have been required to access the Numeron code, and which 50 are basically irrelevant. So in order to do this, we also have to merge the manga and 2 of the video games into our storyline. So to do this, we need some guidelines. Now for one, the anime has to take canonical priority. Well, I'm trying to merge manga events and video game events together. Overall, I'm keeping the anime, every comment that they mention in the anime, as top priority. Anything from the manga, so then potentially has some leeway. Now secondly, all 100 base numbers have to be the same, regardless of if they appear only in the show, the books, the games, or in the OCG TCG. Now, an example of this is number 77 in the books, 37, 38, 70, 35, 23, 63, and so on and so forth. All of those revealed numbers, be it Shimoji Soldier, the Seven Sins, Ravenous Tarantula, have to be the exact numbers that Astral collects at the end of, or sometime during the anime. This includes OCG TCG exclusive numbers such as 57, Trihead Dust Dragon, and so on and so forth. But even though we don't see them in the books or the show, those are the canonical finalization of what the numbers, at least in their artwork and card form that is able to be played. That's the final version of it, which Astral will eventually collect. Now, how do we know for sure that they're going to be the same? Well, in the books, we see at the end Astral using cards such as number 66, let's see, number 61, number 9, which are respectively the same numbers that appear in the anime. Be it 9 Dyson Sphere, 61 Vulcasaurus, 66 Master Key Beetle. They are the exact same cards. So, with that in mind, likely the cards that we see that are canon to the books, 82, Heartland Draco, and so on, have to be canon for the anime. Now, if that's the case, then the backstories for these numbers must be either same or similar from the manga to anime or the video game to the anime. What I mean by that is, say, Evoluder with number 42, Galaxy Tomahawk. It's likely that Evoluder would have fashioned that number himself, or fashioned it into Galaxy Tomahawk. So, in the anime, likely there's a character Evoluder or someone similar that had a similar backstory, thereby putting him in the same position to be able to fashion a number into such a form. So in that sense, I'm trying to mostly combine the books, the show, and the games into one fluid timeline. Now, we also have the video games to consider, the World Duel Carnival and Arc 5 Tag Force Special. And there are some numbers seen there that we don't see in the show or books, such as numbers 81, 18, 36, 74, 85, and so on. And just like with Evoluder, I'm treating the respective number holders the same as if they are canon to the anime. And we'll get into that later, but one example is Mrs. Andrews holding number 74. Even though we don't see that in the anime, that's how it is in the World Duel Carnival. Now, the order of events in the manga potentially can be rearranged, since only the anime has canonical priority. I have to do this for a couple of reasons in 2 instances, and I'll get to that later when I discuss the specific numbers involved. And finally, numbers can be quote-unquote multi-sided. We see that in the manga, where number 70 goes blank, and Shark refashions it in the number 37. Then 28 to 38, 77, potentially to 93, or Shining number 0, a bit debatable there. But we know that some numbers, for whatever reason, the card has multiple numbers contained within. So that must be considered when discussing even some of the anime numbers. So we begin with number 17, Leviathan Dragon. Now this first appeared in episodes 1 and 2. Shark had gained this number after Astral had landed on the Earth. And it's unlikely that Shark, as Nash or so, would have held on to number 17 for all the years that he was in his reincarnated body. He didn't have any of the numbers from before, so on and so forth. Plus, Astral regains the memory of collecting the numbers from number 17, so likely it is a memory fragment. And so this would be a second split number. It's also too coincidental that's basically what I'm going to be calling the too coincidental argument from now on, that it shows up at this specific time in the show as compared to possibly of being in there for hundreds of years, maybe thousands, before someone finally picked it up or something. Now we move on to number 39, Utopia. First appeared in episode 2. This was the only number that Astral managed to hold on to after the second split, so obviously it is one of the second split numbers that is part of his memory fragments. Now number 34 was used by Mr. K in episode 3. I'm going to be saying the too coincidental argument there, not to mention that its artwork and style of play is quite focused on technological stuff, which is not something indicative of eons ago technology, as would be for split numbers potentially. So keeping that second split with blue coloration. Moving on to number 83, Galaxy Queen. This one was used by Nelson Anderson. Yep. Nelson Anderson he landed on his balcony in episode 7. And also it has modern ties to his mother, or known as Galaxy Queen in the fictional TV show that she plays, along with him, the Sparrow. So, likely too coincidental. I'm going to put that in the second split. Numbers 61 and 19. These ended up in the hands of criminals, Scorch and Chills, respectively. Now, the interesting part here is that these two numbers landed in close proximity to each other. This will become somewhat significant later when considering people potentially with more than one number. But this at least shows that when two numbers land on Earth, they can land near each other if not at the same people. So again, these landed in criminals with modern day aspirations. Too coincidental argument, it's likely that they're second split, considering that they landed on Scorch and Chills relatively shortly after Astral lost his memory fragments in the second split. So moving on, number 20 and number 56 have different storylines in the manga versus the anime. In the manga, number 20's holder holds up the mall, and in the anime, number 56's holder holds up the mall. And in both cases, Kite shows up, saves the day, defeats the criminal, and takes the number using Photon Hand. Now for the blended timeline, I have to say then that Kite got number 20 from the same holder that we see in the manga. Now potentially, maybe he could have taken it from somewhere else. Maybe that criminal tried to rob someplace else and Kite took him down there. Because we know Kite had number 20 in the anime when he dueled Yuma. However, it could also be possible that number 20's holder held up the mall, Kite stopped him, and then one of the next days, number 56's holder held up the mall. Yeah, amazing that they could have fixed the skyline, fixed all the damage done that quickly, but it's possible, given the advancements in technology. But regardless, Kite would have defeated both of these holders, and they run the too coincidental argument of modern criminals with modern day aspirations, so not likely that these numbers have been around for centuries, more likely that they were just recently picked up by these criminals. So in that case, I would say both of these are second split numbers. Moving on to number 10, Illuminate. We see Kite using this in episode 13. Oh yeah, real quick before we... number 56, the evidence for there is episode 13. Number 20, the evidence is in rank 7. Chapters are classified by ranks in the manga. So with number 10, Kite uses it against Yuma along with number 20 in episode 13. As well, Kite by then had collected 11 different numbers. So most likely this was one of those 11, and so was number 20, and at that point so was number 56. So it runs a too coincidental argument. My guess is that Kite hunted down this number from someone else, and that this wasn't his starting number that maybe he picked up when the memory fragments scattered. And I'll bring in more evidence about that when we reach number 90. But since it's a too coincidental argument, I'm going to put it in the second split. Now I will also mention that Kite in episode 14, he finds it shocking that Yuma could have had more than one. Maybe it was episode 13, but he finds it shocking that someone could have more than one number. He thinks that if someone has more than one number, then that means that that person is a number hunter. Now, I would still argue that it's possible that people can have more than one number, and we'll definitely get to that in a moment. But that is an interesting concept to show that Kite, in his own experience, has only seen people wielding one number at a time. Now, number 12, Crimson Shadow Armor Ninja, was used by Kaze in episodes 15 and 16. Similarly, runs to coincidental argument that Kaze recently has been dealing with his anger aspirations. The archetype is a modern armor ninja, so it seems likely that this is a second split number. Now, number 11, Big Eye. This one was wielded by Fortuno in episode 17. He uses this against Yuma, but he also uses this against number 16's Holder. Not to mention that Fortuno seems to be implying that he gets many of his powers, or at least the storyline implies that he gets many of his powers from number 11. And as we see in the episode when he tricks Yuma and the others by using all this different magic or whatever. Does that even traps Tori and the others is on this crumbling platform above lava, even though it's all just an illusion. But supposedly he's gaining these powers from Big Eye. So for that matter, having Fortuno use number 11 in this recent, I'd say it runs to coincidental argument, making it a second split number. Now 16 similarly seems to be a second split number. Fortuno defeated number 16's Holder. He only had a single number, so I'd say it still runs to coincidental argument. Now I will also mention Fortuno himself had a second number, which I will potentially get to on my theory on that later. But if that's correct and he had it since the beginning, he didn't win it from someone, that would debunk Kite's understanding that people could have more than one number only if they were number hunters. For now, we'll move on to number 96, Dark Mist. This was summoned by number 96's Holder in episode 20, even though 96 is a portion of Dawn Thousand's soul or spirit or whatever that it was put into Astral at the end of their battle eons ago. Still runs to coincidental argument. It doesn't seem like Dark Mist was split off during that time, especially Dawn Thousand had placed it in Astral right after the numbers have been split off. So this is definitely a second split number, even if it is a portion of Dawn Thousand's spirit that was a corrupted part of Astral's. Number 30, Acid Golem of Destruction, was summoned by Kite in episode 22. This could have potentially been Fortuno's hidden number, because he said it was his most precious number or potentially most powerful number. And this is more powerful than number 11. However, I would think otherwise. I think that Kite won this from some unknown number hunter. Primarily because this doesn't exactly seem to be Fortuno's style. Kite uses this in a style against Shark of wanting Shark to take this number, thereby Shark would take damage from its effect. Whereas Fortuno was focused on taking his opponent's monsters with Big Eye, or taking advantage of their monsters, not giving them something. Similarly, another number, which I will discuss later, potentially could relate to number 30 in that matter, so maybe Kite dueled two people at once like he did later, in order to win this and that other number. I will say that's number 26, but we'll get into that later. So for now, I'd say it probably runs to coincidental argument of what Kite has been hunting, considering that he seems at this point to have only gotten the 11 numbers and then Fortuno's last number, so about 12 numbers. And each of them seems to have been maybe only one number per person. So I'd say it runs to coincidental argument, thereby placing it in the second split. Then we have number 7, Lucky Straight. This one's a little difficult because it's at the Heartland Museum or Heartland Gallery, Gala, whatever you want to call it. In the dub, Yuma's sister Koi mentions that it's been around for some months or so, and that anyone who holds it has unbelievable luck. I didn't check to see what the sub necessarily says if it mentions months, but if so, I mean, depending on how long Yuma has been collecting numbers, could still fit into when the second split occurred. But I will say though that if this had been around for a longer time than the second split at occurrence, Kite probably would have tracked it down. And if it had been in the museum for a while, he definitely would have tracked it down because it would have drawn attention. But nope, Yuma and Shoei could get to it first. No, my bad. Wrong episode. Yuma gets to it first after Charlie McKay steals it from the museum. So, likely that it is a second split number, had been occurring more recently and given people luck, and of course Charlie McKay wanted it. So, episode 31, Yuma defeats Charlie McKay in order to get Lucky straight. Now number 25, Force Focus. This is summoned by Cameron Clicks, and Cameron mentions that he had found it in a garden, I believe. So that, along with number 63 and other instances, shows that people can be collecting numbers not necessarily because it lands on them, but that it lands near them at they find the numbers. I mean, even Nelson picked up his number just sitting on the balcony after it landed there from floating around for a while. But considering that it floated around and landed next to Cameron here, I'd say that it's definitely too coincidental. It's focused on modern cameras, so yes, I would say that it's a second split number. Now for this next part, we have to take a brief intermission to the manga. Because in the manga series, Yuma and the others go off to Heartland because they have heard reports of people leaving feeling sick, maybe kids leaving sick. And supposedly these kids had number cards, and so the number hunters, Captain Corn, Thunderspark, and Princess Cologne, were defeating them respectively. Now, in the manga, we know of roughly maybe 4 duelists specifically that have lost to Captain Corn, but I'll discuss those and how I think they can still fit in. But primarily, I'm thinking that these 3 numbers had to have been won by Yuma sometime either before the World Duel Carnival or during it but before the finals. The latest it could happen maybe is the day before the World Duel Carnival, or the big party where everyone gathers, all the finalists gather. I mean, potentially, depending on how long the mail takes to get to Yuma, he could have gotten the letters a day or 2 after the final day of the preliminaries. So he could have had time to gain these numbers then. Or maybe he gained them before the whole event with Charlie McKay and Cameron Clicks. But regardless, I would say definitely he gained these numbers during that time. So they went to Heartland, and he defeated each respectively. Now, I will also mention though that each of these has a unique backstory, their number holders. Captain Corn said he was a corn kernel that survived for hundreds of years and was given life by Dr. Faker and Mr. Heartland. Thunderspark states that he was an electron that was given life by Dr. Faker and Mr. Heartland. And Princess Cologne states that she was a doll that was given life by Dr. Faker and Mr. Heartland. And supposedly these numbers specifically are what finally gave them that life. Now later we see that the Barians had hired Dr. Faker along with Vectrix to collect all the numbers that were on Earth. If that's so, then potentially they gave Dr. Faker and Vectrix numbers to start with, considering that you kind of need a number to take another number, or at least that would allow for reverse engineering that process in order to make Photon Hand and so on and so forth. So in that case, I'd say it's likely that each of these are actually first split numbers because Dr. Faker had been given them by the Barians in order to go out and hunt other numbers. Next we have number 42, Galaxy Tomahawk. This one is a little tricky just because I have to, as I said under the guidelines, I'm going to have to move this event up in time. In the books, this duel between Yuma and Evoluder occurs after Shark had been given number 47 by Luna, had taken number 63 from the restaurant owner, and then Kyoji he took over the force of Dr. Faker's people trying to get the numbers. But as I said, for combining the timelines, this isn't exactly necessary. So long as we have Evoluder as the owner of this number, the fact that he's working for Dr. Faker, which would allow for the Galaxy archetype to be in his possession, we got enough of a similar storyline that we can then place that event anywhere, considering that Evoluder isn't really a problem, because it doesn't look like he gets more numbers necessarily. So his place in the storyline, so long as Yuma defeats him roughly during the World Duel Carnival, it can still fit in fine. However, there is this one instance where we see this number holder, or supposed number holder, that has just been defeated by Evoluder. Bronk then goes to help him out. Or rather, Bronk goes out because they have signals of 5 different duels involving numbers occurring at once, and Bronk wants to help Yuma because Yuma's not there. So Bronk goes out to face the number hunter himself. Subsequently, Bronk gets defeated by Evoluder even though Bronk doesn't have a number. That might be enough evidence to say that Evoluder will duel people even if they don't have a number. So potentially this guy might not have had a number, and that Kathy's system for detecting number duels was only picking up Evoluder's number 42. Now, of course, at least in the manga, we're more led to believe that this kid here is actually a number holder. But for merging the manga with the anime, I have to say Evoluder was probably just mistaken, or maybe this guy challenged Evoluder or something happened. Evoluder summoned number 42, so Bronk went out to go see what was going on. But in that case, I would say this guy, for anime purposes, does not have a number. And I would also say that Evoluder probably had this number himself, or gained it from the second split, rather than Dr. Faker giving him one. And this is more so just because when this grid is filled up more, it's unlikely that I could place this back in the first split, just considering how many numbers have to be first split in my theory. But I don't see a problem either way, because Evoluder could have gotten a number, could have been working for Dr. Faker in the first place, and so, hey, you got a number? Good, join our number hunters and go out and get some. Seems perfectly fine, and to merge the storylines and as such. Then we move on to numbers 52 and 82. Now, 82 specifically was used by Mr. Heartland, and so was 52. However, only 82 has a direct reference to Mr. Heartland's deck using Heartland monsters. Or technically, they're called Heart Monsters. The original name for this was number 82 Heart Monster Heartland Draco. Big mouthful, I can understand why we shortened it to Heartland Draco. It's pretty pointless for us, we don't even have the Heart Monster archetype. But still, Mr. Heartland uses that. He doesn't necessarily use an archetype or anything focused on Diamond Crab King. But then again, since he is a greedy criminal, in the books he potentially killed Dr. Faker, or at least was using Dr. Faker's death to help out his own goals. Whereas in the anime, later on, we see that he's the leader of this small crime gang or whatever, at least 3 other people that Don Thousand hires. And so we know that Don Thousand definitely is a crook. And so in that degree, what I have to do here is similar to number 42's events. I have to push up Mr. Heartland's duel with Kyoji to sometime during the World Duel Carnival. My theory here then is that the 4 numbers that Captain Korn had taken as we see, there was one kid who went there, and as I'll show on an image later, potentially 3 other duelists had faced Captain Corn before Yuma did that one day. It's likely that all those numbers would have then been going straight to Mr. Heartland, and my theory is then that Mr. Heartland is actually the one pulling the strings in, well, Heartland, and going behind Dr. Faker's back because Mr. Heartland wants the power in order to continue his criminal operations. It doesn't seem unreasonable, or that a crook like him would do such a thing, so I think that can definitely work with this. Not to mention that if Mr. Heartland still is a crook, then he's definitely worthy of Kyoji's wrath, because Kyoji wanted to confront him and defeat him. So in that sense, again, since 52 doesn't seem to be one of Mr. Heartland's specific numbers, it's probably a number that he got from one of those people that Captain Corn defeated. In any case, these would both be roughly second split numbers. Again, and because roughly the 2 coincidental argument, and or the fact that, again, later on there will be too many first split numbers to really put these 2 in the first split. So we have Kyoji defeating Mr. Heartland and then taking all of his numbers, which thereby take them out of the equation for the 50 numbers that Astral gets at the end of the World Duel Carnival, which does balance things out pretty well, I'd say, if you take out these, if you take out the other 3 numbers. Otherwise, that would put things at maybe 55 numbers that Astral would have had rather than 50. But again, we'll get into that a little bit later. Then we're going to move on to Dr. Faker's personal numbers, number 53 Hard Earth and number 92 Hard Earth Dragon. Now these 2 are so related to each other that it seems impossible for Dr. Faker to have started with 53 and then defeated someone else, getting number 92. They're just too related that it seems more likely he had to fashion both of them at once. So that means he started with 2. Depending on whether or not Kite knew this, that might shape his belief in his earlier statement, as I said, that he doesn't think someone would have more than 1 number unless they were a number hunter. And also, again, the Balians did hire Dr. Faker to collect numbers, so it would seem reasonable to give him some numbers to start with. So in that case, I would argue that both of these are first split numbers given to Dr. Faker by the Balians. But of course, he lost them to Yuma at the end of the World Duel Carnival. Now we have to go back to the manga for a bit. Here is where things get a little complicated. Number 47 Nightmare Shark was given to Shark by Luna. Presumably Luna had been working for Dr. Faker as one of his scientists or whatever, but didn't like his project stuff. So she left. Maybe she stole number 47, or maybe she got it from the second split it herself. I would more so venture to say that she probably got it from the second split herself, rather than being able to steal it from a top security or something. But in either case, it'd probably be second split still. But nevertheless, we know it was a blank card before she gave it to Shark, so she did not fashion it herself. The difficulty, though, with number 47 to a degree might be the World Duel Carnival video game, because I'm still trying to incorporate that. But at the same time, there are many cards in the World Duel Carnival video game that we know just couldn't have been used at that time, such as the Balians showing up and using Matherian numbers, or over 100 numbers, when we know that they were not involved in the anime World Duel Carnival. So in that sense, I would probably say that Shark did not have this during the World Duel Carnival. Rather, this occurred in some timeline and events during the anime where Luna still thought Dr. Faker was doing something bad or something was going on. and she wanted Shark's help in order to defeat the Numbers. Now, of course, this is a rather interesting case, given that Shark, at this point, would have number 32. Astral let Shark have that at the end of the World Duel Carnival. And so it seems that Shark will be okay with having Numbers. But in the books, Luna is appealing to that Shark was possessed by 17, so he knows what danger they possess. And so she wants him to help her out in destroying all the Numbers. That part I cannot reconcile, but at least I could still try to combine the timelines and say that Luna had number 47 and gave it to Shark to help her out with her own goals. So again, I would say probably too coincidental and put it in the second split. Now these events, let's see here, probably would be occurring after episode 82. Because at the beginning of season 2, Astral is discussing how he has 50 numbers. Interesting that he claims that, given that he's letting Shark keep one of them, number 32. But I guess it still counts as them having 50 in total. But he mentions that at least is episode 74 and episode 82 or so. And given Astral's injuries and stuff, and has to heal, the events that take place in this manga timeline I'm trying to merge in probably wouldn't occur until after episode 89, when he finally heals up. And this will probably also occur before Vector showed up with number 66, because that just sparks a whole series of anime events. But we do see a lull in between, where there's just some generic duels, such as Anna and Yuma going against this one couple that are in the pro duels and stuff. So there is a lull where these events could take place in. Then after Shark gains number 47, I would put in then that he defeated number 63's holder in order to gain Shimoji's soldier. 63's holder himself mentions that he picked it up down by the river recently. So for that degree, definitely the two coincidental arguments that it landed in recently has to be a second split number. Then we move on to number 72. This is held by Hishikaku, one of the number hunters working for Kyoji. It's unknown whether he and ones like Shadow were working for Dr. Faker originally, but maybe unlikely. It seems like Kyoji's definitely hiring some own number hunters just to gain some more numbers for himself. And similarly, because there were only first split numbers as later, but also just because this has such a reference to Hishikaku's life recently and everything. Seems likely I could still run the two coincidental argument. This definitely was not given to him by Kyoji, who got his numbers from Era. And so it's likely that Hishikaku got this number himself and then was hired by Kyoji later. So in that sense, I would probably put it in the second split. Then we move on to Shadow, who has number 13 embodiment of crime, number 31 embodiment of punishment, or Kane's Doom and Abel's Doom if you prefer the original names, and number 48 Shadow Lich. Now, he uses these in ranks 28 through 32. And uses these against Shark and Kite in order to lure them into a trap. Using 13 and 31 respectively. And then uses 48 against Yuma, when Yuma tries to step in and defeat Shadow so that Shark and Kite don't die from this. So, similarly with 72, I'd say that Shadow probably got these numbers himself. And if he did, and he was working for Kyoji, probably second split then. The only little issue there is just how he got 3 numbers. Again, Kite seems to be under the impression that you can only have 1 number unless you're a number hunter. Well, I guess it is possible he started with Shadow Lich and got 13 and 31 from a couple of other duelists. It's hard to exactly say there. But nevertheless, I'd say that they're second split. Now we move on though to Kyoji's numbers specifically. Now in the books, Era, this deity of darkness or whatever, she is the one who splits Astral's memory into 100 fragments. In doing so, she gains a whole bunch of numbers, and then all of them she gives to Kyoji. Or at least all the ones that we see Kyoji have, he got from Era. Now I know you could also pronounce her name as Ira, but I'm going with the traditional name that the Japanese gave her, which was Era, referencing the English word error. So yeah, I'm just keeping with that. So we know that Kyoji in his duel against Mr. Heartland used number 70, Deadly Sin, Malevolent Sin in the dub, or in the TCG, 21, Frozen Lady Justice, and 14, Greedy Sarah Maya, all using multiples of 7, referencing the 7 sins. My theory though is that in trying to merge these events with the anime, that's similar when Dawn 1000 defeated Astral, well not that, Astral defeated Dawn 1000 and eons ago when the 50 power numbers split. I'd say that at that time, Era collected these specific numbers and then only recently gave them to Kyoji at the time. I suppose Kyoji is a bit of a difficulty actually, considering that in the books Shark lived at an orphanage with Kyoji. There's no reference of Shark having a sister and everything, but again, the anime, it takes canonical priority. The only thing I can say is that somewhere in the timeline Kyoji was also a rival of Shark, just like Quattro was. As they run a bit of a similar backstory where Kyoji has a rough childhood, or a rough backstory where he kills who he thinks is his brother and stuff. And so that's what allows these numbers to be forged. That would make sense, because again, we have to keep the numbers as they are here, being Greedy Sarah, Frozen Lady Justice, Malevolent Sin. So how to fashion these numbers into what they are seems likely you'd need a backstory similar to Kyoji's or exactly the same. So that's why we're keeping in his backstory and his character in the same place. But since Era had the cards first, it's best to say that Era got them from the first split and then eventually finally gave them to Kyoji. So in that sense, I would say that they're first split. Now the same would go for numbers 23, 28, 95. And these were all originally owned by Era and given to Kyoji. Kyoji fashioned 23, he gave Heart Tenjo 28 to fashion, and he gave Kite Tenjo 95 to fashion. Now he does this in ranks 34, no my bad, that's 21. Ranks 36, 45, 39, and 42. That's why I'm getting my evidence for these three specifically. Now I will say though, with 95, Astral does gain a memory from it, but again, in the books, all 100 numbers are pushed as memory fragments, so I'm just talking that up as a manga event, and that can't be crossed over, because the anime takes priority. So these were all Era as numbers, then they're all first split. Then similarly, we've got numbers 35, 84, and 77 used by Kyoji in ranks 44 and 45. Again, originally owned by Era, given to Kyoji. So in order to merge the timelines, I'd say first split. Now next up are numbers 37, 38, and 93. Now 37, Hope Woven Dragon Spider Shark, was originally number 70, but Kyoji made it blank again and then gave it to Shark, who fashioned it into 37. The same is similar with number 38. Kyoji made that blank again from number 28, gave it to Kite, and Kite refashioned it into 38. Now 93 is a bit debatable. Well, we see Kyoji turning number 77 blank again. This is all happening in ranks 48, 49, 48 and 49. But what's initially assumed is that when Yuma uses this blank number, he fashioned it into shining number 0, Utopic ZEXAL. However, if we take a look at Utopia Kaiser, I don't know if you call them wings or spikes, but whatever's coming from on his back has these interesting circle formations that are nearly identical to what we see on number 77. So as far as the trivia on the wiki is concerned, 93 is actually this number that was fashioned from the blank, or the reblanking of number 77. So in that case, each of these are dual-sided numbers. Now, potentially 93 could be a tri-sided number if shining number 0 was actually the number fashioned, but then Astral made it blank again and then refashioned it into Utopia Kaiser when he finally took the numbers from Yuma. Possible, although I prefer that 93 was directly fashioned from 77 just because shining numbers in the manga, just like chaos numbers in the anime, had no initial card form. They just materialized out of whatever energy was being felt at the time. Likewise, we do not actually see Yuma using the blank number 77 to refashion it into shining number 0. The only thing we see is him saying the last bit of like Kyoji's bond with them is going to be able to forge this card. So that could be alluding to, that is presumed to allude that hit the blank number is turning into shining number 0, but could also just be saying that shining number 0 was being materialized out of the bond of those four: Kyoji, Yuma, Kite, and Shark. So yeah, I prefer that theory, meaning that all three of these are dual-sided numbers, which is important to take into consideration for later. Which means that these were all initially controlled by error, and so they're all first split. Now moving back to the anime, we have number 66, Master Key Beetle, which was summoned by Vector in, let's see here, episode 94. Now, potentially, he could have gotten this from Dawn 1000, but Dawn 1000 wasn't being revived by him until episode 99. So it's hard to exactly say where Vector got this from, because at the beginning of Season 2, we know that Dumont and Mazur are talking about how, at least I think it's Dumont and Mazur, but definitely Dumont, is talking about how the Barians cannot hunt numbers on Earth because they can't access their Barian forms. And it's not until later that they are able to use the sphere field in order to allow them to use their Barian forms, thereby letting them take numbers. I mean, the entire beginning of Season 2 is kind of pointless, just Garag looking for humans to duel Yuma and take his numbers because Garag couldn't do it himself. So how Vector got this exactly is beyond me. Maybe he grabbed a sphere field, because I mean, he did use it in his duel against Yuma. But I think it's more likely that this is just one of the first split numbers that the Barians have had, that Vector's just been keeping in reserve. Not to mention that this has a relation to the different dimension airship. It's the key that activates Astral's different dimension airship. And we see that Astral does not use this airship when he initially goes to Earth. Rather, he just shows up there, crash lands. Maybe if he had the airship, he would have actually used that. But it seems more likely that the airship key split off during his duel with Dawn 1000. So somehow Dawn Thousand or the Barbarian Emperors got a hold of this number during the many centuries or whatever, millennia. And Vector is then using it now. Now potentially you could argue that it's a memory just because when Astral uses it in the airship, he, I guess, gains the memory of how to fly the airship. But at the same time, given that Yuma's friends could have they easily figure out how to fly it. Even Tori and Kathy or whatever. I mean, I guess Kathy's a bit technologically savvy, given she's rich, but still, if these middle schoolers or whatever can figure out how to fly it, I don't think it's that much of a stretch to say that Astral could figure it out quickly. So in that sense, again, I'd say it's a first split number. Then we move on to the Matherians. I mean, these are obviously first split numbers. Dawn Thousand even references it. So we see these ones 44, 54, and 65, the evidence for them with episodes 100, 140, for 44. 65's evidence is 101, 102, and 137. And 54's evidence is 103 and 130, those episodes. Because they relate to Demon for 44, Alito for 54, and Vector for 65. Matherian numbers, they have to be first split. Those are some of the easiest ones to discuss. Same for 46 and 64. 46 relates to Mazar, 64 relates to Karag. So we got evidence and for their backstories in episodes 105 through 107 and 133 through 134. Again, Matherian numbers, they have to be first split. Dawn Thousand even confirms that, so. And the same with 73 and 94. Abyss Splash references Nash, and Crystal Zero is related to Marin. Evidence in episodes 109 and 140 when learning the backstories and everything. Matherian numbers, they are first split. Easy to power through those. Then we move on to ones such as number 43, 58, and 80. In these ones, we have Dawn Thousand giving them to their respective Barbarian Emperors. We know that he gives number 80 to Alito, and Alito uses it in episode 129. He uses this to power up his Battle and Boxer deck against Yuma. So that means that Dawn Thousand has had this number. It was most likely blank, though, and Alito fashioned it at that duel in order to take on Yuma. Maybe Alito fashioned it before the duel. Either way, Alito seems to be the one fashioning it, given its relevance to his deck. Similarly, 58 is given to Garag by Dawn Thousand, and Garag uses it to power up his deck, and it kind of relates to the Chaos number 106 Lava Palm, giant red hand for us. And we see that in episode 132. 43 seems to have been given into Vector by Dawn Thousand. It makes sense, Dawn Thousand has been giving numbers to the Emperors that he's working with, not Dumont, Moen, or Nash, of course. And probably not Mazora, because Mazora is too busy focused on fighting Kite, so he's not around to get numbers. From Dawn Thousand, that is. But it seems likely that Vector could have gotten 43 from Dawn Thousand and then fashioned it in order to control number 96. That's what was going on there in episode 131 when he was dueling Dumont and Moen. So if that's the case, I'd say all three of these Dawn Thousand has had for maybe even since the first split itself. So I'd say these are all first split numbers. Definitely not ones that Dawn Thousand has been hunting down after the second split. That seems impossible, given that he was sealed away. Then we have number 62 and number 100. 62, Kite gained when he dueled Mazar on the moon, and 100, similarly after the entire ritual with Galaxy Eyes Tachyon Dragon and Galaxy Eyes Prime Photon Dragon and stuff. Numon Dragon, the dragon that created the entire universe, finally put itself into a number card itself. And so Kite ended up gaining both 62 and 100 from the moon. Given how old these cards' focuses are, and given that the moon was created from the Earth, it's one big mess in how they said these things. It's likely that these were first split numbers. I mean, even just how powerful they are, their respective storylines, I'd say definitely they are reminiscent of astral power, if anything. So I definitely said they're both first split numbers. Then we move on to number 5, Dune Chimera Dragon. Now, of course, in the anime, we never actually see this number. We just know that it's mentioned in the Chaos form of number 5, Chaos Chimera Dragon, which Vector uses in his duel with Nash in episode 137. It's likely that this number was given to him by Don Thousand, similarly with 43, before Vector finally betrayed him and during this duel or whatever. So, I definitely say this would have to be a first split number, given that the variants have had it for so long and they probably didn't hunt it down recently from numbers on Earth. Then, of course, the Numeron gates, numbers 1 through 4. Each of them were used by Don Thousand. These gates were mentioned to be guarding the Earth after Don Thousand's duel with Astral eons ago. It's quite obviously from the evidence in episode 139, first split, that Don Thousand even claims them to be the first 4 numbers to fall to Earth. So yeah, very obviously first split numbers. Then we have number 99, Utopic Dragon. Astral summons this during his duel against Yuma in the final episode, episode 146. Now, we never see Astral have this number before. Similarly, we never see him have number 93 as his boss monster in the manga. So it's likely that he got this recently. So I would venture to guess that Don Thousand had this in more than likely blank form, never fashioned it himself. Because he clearly had 80, 58, 43 all in blank form, and they were later fashioned by the respective emperors when they were used. So it wouldn't be much of a stretch to say that Don Thousand also had this as a blank number, and he never fashioned it in Utopic Dragon. And so Astral finally fashioned it himself in his duel against Yuma. So to that degree, and since again we never see them using this before, it seems like a pretty good number that they would use or something. More than likely it's for split. Then we move on to some of the more tougher numbers to discuss. Number 75, Bamboozle and Gossip Shadow, a Gossip Shadow of Confusion. I really prefer that name, but whatever. In its artwork we see the silhouettes of number 64, Ronin Raccoon Sandayu, number 48, Shadow Lich, and number 46, Dragluon. These, at least 2 of them are Matherian numbers. The other relates to Shadow, so it seems like Shadow himself might be using this. It's a rank 3 number, it's got Shadow in the name just like Shadow Lich. It seems likely that he would have it. But I would argue otherwise just because the Matherian numbers show up. And as we placed in the timeline, the events with Shadow show up before Yuma and the others start searching for the Matherian numbers. So Shadow could not have had knowledge of these numbers, much less their silhouettes, be able to incorporate it and fashion it in this number. Plus, in the books, Yuma doesn't seem to gain number 75 from defeating Shadow. Now, I know Shadow was made later for the TCG, OCG, but still, that artwork has to be taken into consideration. So to that degree, I would likely say this is a blank number that Don Thousand had that wasn't fashioned until after Astral finally gained it after defeating Nash and gaining all 100 numbers. Similarly with number 98, Antitopian, this appears to be a monster to counter Utopia. That would mean that it would be controlled by someone who has knowledge of Yuma and Astral's Utopia usage. And likely wasn't made on the spot. So if it wasn't made on the spot, that eliminates pretty much all the second split number users that we see throughout the anime, throughout Season 1. So who could have had a blank number, been completely opposed to Utopia, and been a main antagonist for them? Seems likely again the answer is simply Don 1000, so likely he forged this, fashioned this number to counter them in his duel against them, but since he had the Numeron monsters, he never had reason to use it. So I'd say number 98 is first split that Don 1000 had it himself. Now number 97, I'm using the sample photo because at the time they have not released and used a better picture. It has not come out for the TCG yet. I'm just using what information I have to go on now. Number 97, Dravion, is clearly a dark counterpart to number 46, Dragluon. Now what we do know is that, as Wiki calls them, they're Oriental dragons. These are clearly based in Chinese mythology. As we know from Chinese beliefs, we have the yin-yang symbols. The two energies are constantly swirling, light and dark, good and evil, whatever you want to call them. So in that sense, it would make sense for this to be a dual-sided number with number 46. This being representing the dark and 46 representing the light. Now there's some arguments for and against this. One, that there's 7 material numbers, not 8. But if so, then we have to treat 97 as someone with enough knowledge to work with this. I guess you could potentially argue that Astral had it and fashioned it again after he gained another blank number from Don 1000. But the primary argument otherwise would just be who could fashion this type of number. The most obvious answer would be Mazora. Kite Tenjo uses number 46, so Mazora uses a dark counterpart against him. But again, we never see Mazora gaining any numbers from Don 1000 himself. We never see Mazora relying on anything really other than his galaxy-sized Tachyon Dragon. So even though it works with his deck, it doesn't seem like it would actually be that. This seems more like just a yin-yang equivalent and to being the other half of 46. And as we have seen, numbers can be multi-sided. So in that sense, that's why I'm arguing with number 97 here. There's just no evidence really to support Mazora having this or gaining it in any kind of fashion. Nonetheless, each of these I'd say is first split. Then we move on to number 78, number archive. Similar to number 66, this is clearly reminiscent of the different dimension airship. And also, as the wiki states, if we look at the artwork, it mentions chaos numbers 39 and chaos number 32. So obviously this has to be fashioned after those have been made. However, again, similar to 66, if this was around, it would have to be fashioned by Astral. And Astral never gets this card at any time that we can see until maybe after he defeats Don 1000 and again fashions things like number 99. So likely this would have been a blank number that maybe would have had the intrinsic properties of the different dimension airship within it, just like number 66 did. But Don 1000 had been holding on to it until Astral finally collects it and then fashions it himself. So for there, I'd say this goes in the first split. Now next is a bit more complicated. Number 79, Battle Unboxer Nova Kaiser, I can easily say is used by Alito in one of the video games. Let's see. Can't remember exactly which one. And it was either World Duel Carnival or Arc 5 Tag Force Special. But in any case, again, Alito wasn't present during the World Duel Carnival in the anime, so regardless, he has to have gained this sometime later. Now, in episode 86, Astral tries to absorb number 105 after defeating Alito, but finds out he can't. You'd think that if Alito had number 79, and at that time, Astral would have been able to take that, unless Astral was only searching for 105 and was not even, and for some reason numbers can only be taken if you're focused on the specific one, but I don't think so. Seems like any numbers that someone has on them will be absorbed after he defeats them in a duel and start absorbing. So to that degree, Alito must have gotten this later than episode 86. So I'd be willing to bet then that he gained this number at the same time Don Thousand gave him number 80. Makes sense. I mean, 80, 79, they're so closely related. Makes sense there, at least to me, logically. So my theory makes this another number that Don Thousand had, but gave it to Alito in order to defeat Yuma. However, Alito never actually uses this in his duel. Now, 71 is much harder to discuss, because obviously it relates back to number 17, Shark's first number. It also shows Rebellion Shark in the name, signifying that Shark has once again become Nash, thereby showing that he's once again a Balian. Now, I will say that in episode 123, we see this image was seen, where Nash is standing addressing his fellow Balian emperors, and is seen with 7 cards floating about him. Shortly after this image, one of those cards is shown to be number 101, Silent on Arc. So it seems likely that these aren't the 7 rank up magic, the 7th ones that he's giving his Balian emperors. It seems likely that these are legitimate numbers that he's collected and that show off his power. Now, at the end of the manga events, which we try to blend in, I would say that Astral absorbed Kite's numbers and Kyoji's numbers, but he did not absorb Shark's numbers. Similarly to how he let Shark have number 32 at the end of the anime season 1, Astral thinks Shark thought Shark trustworthy enough at the time to let him have whatever numbers he collected. So in that sense, my theory is that these numbers are as follows: number 101. Now, assuming that chaos numbers have not been, are not included here, we're ignoring chaos number 101 and chaos number 73, they probably haven't been made yet, and ignoring chaos number 32 maybe. The other numbers would be 32, 47, 63, 37, 94, and 73. Combined with 101, that would be 7 total numbers. So where would number 71 be? It would make sense that if he became Balian again, that's when he would get this number. He's not working for Don Thousand, and Don Thousand does not want to work with him at all, because Don Thousand couldn't have given him this number. So my theory is that number 71 is actually a tri-sided number. As we saw in when Shark remakes number 70 into 37, that's to signify the bond with his friends. But when he becomes a Balian, and later on he even mentions that he does not view Yuma or the others as his friends anymore. He doesn't want anything to do with them. He's only loyal to his Balians and his subjects and so on. So in that sense, it would make sense for him to refashion 37 into 71, showing he is fully Balian, and he's given up all ties of friendship to Yuma and the others. And it might be a bit of a stretch, but considering that number 71 Rebellion Shark is the canonical number that Astral eventually gets, it has to have some relation to Nash. The question is, when would that be? Because only Nash could have fashioned this. So he would have had to have some sort of blank number, or make a number that he had blank again and refashion it. I think that's the more plausible theory. So to that degree, both of these are first split. Moving on, we have numbers 81 and 86. Now both of these are used in the Arc 5 Tag Force Special. Anna Kaboom uses 81, she uses the Railway deck, and Nistro uses 86, the Heroic Champion deck. Now, Anna never had a number as far as we know in the series. When she dueled Yuma during the World Duel Carnival preliminary, she was not in the preliminaries, she didn't have a number, she didn't seem to know about any numbers, so we can't say that she had this during that time. Now, she might have had it during that little in between lull before we see Vector show up in number 66. That's when she joins Heartland Academy, becomes a fellow student. So maybe she got it there and Yuma won it from her. But I would think more likely that for some reason this number has been floating around and finally landed on her. So when she confronted the Barian Emperors, as technically Mazar, in episode 125, that's when she lost 81 to Mazar. And we have enough evidence to not dispute this, because Mazar, in those episodes when he's defeating duelists including Trey and Quentin, we see such duelists turn into energy and go to Barian World, but we don't see Mazar taking the numbers himself. It's just assumed that he takes Trey's 33, 6, KS number 6, and Quentin's 9 and KS number 9. So similarly in how we only see Anna turning in energy and going to Barian World, Mazar could have easily taken number 81. Now 89, Nistro, during the World Duel Carnival when Yuma defeats him in the finals, he doesn't give Yuma number 86, he only gives him Heroic Champion Excalibur. If he had number 86, likely he would have given it to him at the time. Furthermore, when we see AM in episode 124, when Alito is mind controlling Nistro does not use number 86, and when he gives number 54 to Yuma, he doesn't also give him number 86. So likely he didn't have it then either. But since he has it in the video game, I have to assume that it's in his deck at some point. So I'd say later on, before the Barian Emperor onslaught, it finally falls from the sky and lands on him, and he loses it to Alito. It's episodes 125 and 126. So, to that degree, I would argue that both of these are actually second split. Some might question, why would I not include 27 with Anna? I'll get to that in a moment. Beforehand, we're going to talk about number 90, Galaxy-Eyes Photon Lord. Now, Galaxy-Eyes Photon decks were only used by Kite and Mazar. It's very specific, again, with Dr. Baker and the others making Kite's deck only for Kite with Galaxy-Eyes and Photon. So only Kite or Mazar could have used this. We don't necessarily have any evidence to support Mazar having this. However, this could have been Kite's very first number that he used. Not Illuminite, but number 90. Would make sense, given that it's perfect for his deck. Could start him off with the numbers. I'd say it's definitely, that's the most plausible theory, rather than Mazar being able to somehow gain a number like this. Mazar especially is too focused on dragons. He doesn't seem to be focused on something like warrior here. So for that, I'd say it's second split. Moving on, we have number 74 and 85. Both of these are used in the World Duel Carnival video game. 74 by Mrs. Andrews, Nelson's mom, and 85 is used by Charlie McKay and Mr. K. Obviously, I can't include them both, so I'd say it's more likely Charlie McKay just because Crazy Box focuses on dice rolls, and that is Charlie McKay's style of dueling. So in that degree, the question is then who won these numbers to eventually get them to astral possession at the end of the World Duel Carnival. In that case, we only know of a few duelists: Kite, Yuma, and Quattro. Because Shark isn't number hunting during the World Duel Carnival. He's content with number 32. Now Kite, he uses Photon Hand, so he steals people's soul and they go into this like aging coma or whatever. So likely Mrs. Andrews, if she was hit by that, Nelson would be more distraught when we see him dueling Nistro in the preliminaries. And with number 85, Charlie McKay, he seems alright. when Yuma duels him. He doesn't have number 85 at that time. But still, likely we would have seen or heard something about Charlie McKay. Later, I don't know with that one, but still, seems likely neither one of them was defeated by Photon Hand. Especially given that May, the little girl that Charlie was concerned about, gave Yuma an astral back number 7 afterwards, so Charlie seems to be fine then. If Charlie's the one giving it back actually too. So that leaves either Yuma or Quattro. And we know that Quattro has quite a few numbers. Quattro had roughly 10 numbers when we see him. Episode 33 was it? Either way, Quattro has been gaining in quite a few numbers. Among them we know are his main numbers 15, 40, 88, and 32. So that leaves 6 numbers there that we still have to account for. And since we know that there's not really any evidence to show that the Vetrix crest actually steals souls, it's more likely that Quattro got it, so we can fit these in with his numbers that he collected, rather than what Yuma could have collected. Again, it's not likely that Yuma would have faced Charlie a second time. However, there is a debate that Vetrix stole Kite's soul at the end of that one duel. But at the same time, Vetrix, when he released all of his souls that he collected, or took at the end of the World Duel Carnival or so, there were dozens. I was baffled by how many souls he released. They didn't duel that many people. There were only 50 numbers that Astral got at the end of the first season, so I have no clue why he had all those souls. Even then, it seems only Vetrix is the one taking those souls. Likely Quattro's crest wasn't that powerful. So I'd say it's more likely that Quattro was the one who defeated Miss Sanders and Charlie McKay for these numbers. Running the two coincidental argument, they're the second split. Now, number 49 Fortune Tune was used by Toy in the World Duel Carnival. And there's no indication that Toy ever dueled Quattro before they first met. That's in the anime. And obviously Toy was in good health. She wasn't struck by Photon Hand with Kite. So that only leaves Yuma. So my guess is that sometime during the World Duel Carnival, number 49 landed on Toy. She became possessed. Yuma was right there to help, so he dueled her, took the number, and so that's one of the second split numbers he had. Then we have number 89, Diabolos the Mind Hacker. This is what I think was Fortuna's hidden number. First off, it's a rank 7, just like Big Eye. Second off, Mind Hacker, Psychic, it's perfect for Fortuna's character. It definitely seems to be more powerful than number 11, thereby indicating it's more precious to Fortuna. Definitely makes sense to give him his powers. This seems definitely the number that Kite would have taken from Fortuna after Kite dueled him for it. So in that sense, I would say this is definitely the second split number, and that's the 12th number that Kite gathered. We move on then to numbers 24, 59, and 87. These ones are tough, so I shall bring up this image to work with. Here we see a news article of 4 people that Kite has struck with Photon Hand. These are likely not after he defeated Fortuna, given that he's always by Heart's side because Heart's in bad condition at that point. So these are likely from the 11 initial, but technically 10 if you grant that he started with number 90. So these are likely 4 of the 10 victims that he won numbers off of. So at this point, I just have to pick numbers based on images of people based on their profiles. With number 87, Queen of the Night, number 87, this is meant to be the queen over the Princess Flower archetype that we see in Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. We see plant users, even Akiza using one of the princesses. I don't mean the stereotype, but likely this was used by a female duelist. Because in the Yu-Gi-Oh series, female duelists are the ones using the plant decks, including Predator plants in Arc 5, but still, they're the ones using these princess plants. So that's why I venture to guess the number 87 was wielded by this lady in the picture. Number 59, I would think this older gentleman to her right is 59's holder. Just because he looks older, he looks more like he could be a businessman or something. So maybe he's a cook. Again, at this point, it's just up to interpretation based on images. So you can agree, disagree on these. But when it comes to all these last numbers, one of them has to go with one of these number holders. That much is a given. Now, I think the man on the younger male on the left is number 24's holder, just because he looks like he could be more of a dark place. I don't know, maybe it's his face, his hair, or something. It just looks like something that would be more into the vampiric style. I mean, there's a bit of a problem with number 24 anyway. That's a worm, and that worm series wasn't a thing until Arc 5. But at this point, we just have to say that worms were a thing in ZEXAL. Oh well. So to that degree, I think that Kite took these from those, meaning that they're all second split. Now number 55 is tough as well. Yuma uses number 55 in the Arc 5 tag for a special. However, we have seen in the Yu-Gi-Oh series that different people can run on the same type of deck. We've seen this with, at least if we're comparing ZEXAL to Arc 5, Anna Kaboom uses a Railway deck, Alan Kazuki uses a Railway deck. In GX, Jaden uses an Elemental Hero deck, and Aster even starts with an Elemental Hero deck before switching to Destiny Heroes. So it's not too far of a stretch to say that some other kid, I would think it's a kid given that Yuma is a Go-Go-Go user, might be that kids prefer the Go-Go-Go's. So it makes sense that some other kid would have this. The only thing that is required for the theory is that Yuma eventually has number 55. He doesn't have to be the one to fashion it, he just has to own it in his deck at some point. And so my guess would be that it's this kid's. Now it might be the manga kid or any of the manga characters that lost to Captain Corn, maybe. But I have my own theories, so it's just on a few of their numbers. So for now, I think it's this kid. If so, then it's the second split number 1 by Kite. Then we move on to 45 and 60. Now, Kite at one point defeats this pair of duelists. They are definitely working together. I'd say they know each other. It's unlikely that Kite would have found them together if they didn't know each other. So my guess is that these two were the ones to own these respective numbers. Which one owned which, I don't know. My guess on this is more so just based on the fact that 45 and 60, at least to me, look like they have somewhat similar artworks, given the goldness that you can see in that winged bird-like thing in 60, and 45's gold on its hoofs and other portions, the blue colorations, the curls on the lightning versus the curls in the magic stuff, fire, whatever you want to call it. They just seem similar to me. Now, that one duelist before seemed like he had a mohawk or something, so maybe number 24 was his because it had a mohawk. Maybe. Again, it's up to interpretation. I'm picking these two just because I think the artworks are similar. So in that sense, they're both second split numbers, 1 by Kite. Similarly, I think Kite won these two numbers. Number 26, Octo bypassed the dimensional pathway just because it's another sort of galaxy or whatever themed card. Even though it's not a galaxy or photon card, it's still based on that space theme. So maybe it was a worker gone rogue or something that Kite hunted down. I don't know. But it seems like something that Kite would quickly hunt down. Plus it seems too modern to say a first split thing. It seems like it's something that would work with the numbers that split off in the second split. Similarly, by Glucia Terribly Tired to Pure, my god, I hate that English or the dub artwork, is the original where it's really a drunken demon. So in that case, modern beer bottles and beer cans, or whatever, alcohol. Yeah, that's too modern to be a first split number, and it's likely owned by some sort of drunk or something. Quattro was the enemies that he was facing were more like kids or his fan base, so I'd say they're not drunks probably, so likely a male adult, so most likely someone that Kite defeated. So for there, I'd say they're both second split numbers. Then we have 5176. I think that Quattro defeated these against his fans. 51 for the reason that it's a rank 3 monster, and typically kids in the Yu-Gi-Oh universe aren't well versed with monsters above level and rank 4. So it seems like something that a kid might use. 76 seems to be, I'm just guessing here, based on its effect that's more defensive and stuff, that it might be a female who is in the music or something, has a defensive personality maybe. I mean, we know that Quattro has a lot of female fans. Makes sense that it would be someone, maybe an older girl since it's a rank 7, and so she has more knowledge with understanding in combos. But still, likely more so someone that Quattro would have defeated just because he's dueling his fan base. So those amount to 2 more of the numbers that Quattro collected. As we see, again, he's collected 10. 4 of those are from his own. Seems likely that these 2 are also included. So second split. Moving on, we have numbers 27 and 29. Again, I think Quattro gained these numbers. Seems like things that a younger population might utilize. But 27, I think it belongs to Alan Kozuki. Now, Alan is an Arc 5 character, but he uses a railway deck. And for what we've seen in the Arc 5 series, the characters in the dimensions are based on the characters in these respective timelines. For example, in the Synchro dimension, we have Crow Hogan, Jack Atlas, Dexter, Lazar, and a whole plethora of other characters that we see from the 5D's timeline. Same for the Fusion, we got Astra Phoenix, Alexis Rhodes, and in the XC's dimension we have Kite Tenjo, and we have these other characters too, that are more minor characters. I forget their names, but still. If Kite's there, it seems like the other characters here in this XC's dimension version of Heartland City are also people that would have been there during the ZEXAL timeline. And if they retain their similar deck styles, Alan Kozuki used a railway deck focused on the level 4s. We never saw him use the higher levels like Anna Kaboom uses level 10s. So that would make him a prime candidate to use number 27 Dreadnought Dreadnoid, thereby eliminating the problem of Anna getting 2 numbers landed on her, and also being able to place this as one of the numbers that Quattro obtained, thereby placing it better in my timeline. Now 29 one would think would belong to Kathy Captain. She uses a cat deck, but I would argue against it. Kathy primarily uses level 1 and level 4 monsters. She doesn't use level 2 monsters. Now, in the World Duel Carnival video game, she uses the monster Dark Cat with White Tail, but she only uses 1 copy, and that's the only level 2 monster in her deck. She's not seen using anything that would change the levels to a level 2. So I don't think there's enough evidence to suggest that, not to mention that she definitely was not defeated by Quattro in the anime, nor was she defeated by Kite. So likely some other person who was using maybe a cat deck is the owner of 29. Maybe some kid, or maybe someone who is in the mannequins, or maybe even someone who's referencing the lucky cats that you see in restaurants. That's literally what the pun in number 29's name, Mannequin Cat. So in any case though, I would think that it was won by Quattro, thereby putting both of these in the second split. Moving on, these 3 I would think are the ones owned by people that Captain Corn defeated. for one, they kind of form an interesting pattern. 57, 67, 68, they're kind of a little, I mean, they're right next to each other in the grid. Furthermore, I mean, we don't know exactly who Captain Cold was defeating, whether he's defeating kids or not. I don't know, these are just the numbers that I thought didn't really match up with the images of the other number holders that I've shown. I mean, yeah, I just don't think any of them would have wielded these types, but that's up to interpretation. If you want to mix around those numbers, you can. But to that degree, I would think that these, along with number 52, belong to those 4 number holders that were defeated by Captain Corn that we for sure know about in the manga series. This is evidenced in rank 11, where we see this image here. This mascot is saying that Yuma is the 4th special guest of the day. To me, I think that means that there were 3 other number holders before him that day, which would account for these 3 specific numbers. Whether the people knew each other or something, I don't know. But it would make sense in order to fill in that gap with 3 number holders. Well, here we are, 3 number cards that have to be attributed to someone. Makes sense that they're second split then. But since they went to Heartland, as all numbers that Captain Cold collected, Yuma did not have them at the end of the World Duel Carnival. Moving on, we finally get to the Vetrix family numbers. These ones are the most complex for me just because the Vetrix himself was hired by the Barians to collect numbers. Now we know that 8 is summoned in episode 54 and 69 is summoned in episode 64. Now 69 requires an immense amount of hatred to wield. It seems likely that that would be more so from the first split involved with power as compared to a memory that Astral has immense hatred. I don't know, it just seems more like a first split power focus. Similarly, number 8 seems to be Vetrix's first number. So likely if he was given numbers by the Barians, similar to how I theorized the Barians gave numbers to Dr. Faker, this would be the first number that Vetrix was given. So to that degree, I would think that both of these are actually first split numbers. Similarly, I think both number 32 and number 6 are first split numbers. Why? Well, again, with 32, we know that Quattro uses this. Or rather, Quattro, this is one of the 10 numbers that Quattro uses to pin those sheets of paper to the doorway. Now, number 32 specifically was planned by Vetrix to be given to Shark in order to corrupt his heart, in order to manipulate him so that Vetrix could control him. Seems like the biggest coincidence ever if you were to say Quattro dueled someone, got number 32 Shark Drake, it was a good corrupting number, and hey, what do you know, it has Shark in its name, we can use it against Shark. Seems like the biggest coincidence ever to say that. It seems more likely that Vetrix himself fashioned this number and gave it to Quattro to use, but eventually was obviously going to be planned to be given to Shark by Trey. That was Vetrix's master plan. He's pretty good at planning ahead, so I definitely say he fashioned this number specifically for Shark. So likely it was a first split number given by the Barians, if he was planning that far ahead. Number 6, similarly, Trey does not initially have this. Even though 33 is in its artwork, Vetrix clearly gives this number to Trey. Let's see here, this was episode 48 and 49. So if Vetrix is the one fashioning this for Trey, again, likely this was one of the first split numbers. It definitely has a lot of power to it. I would venture to guess that it's first split, and that Vetrix was really pulling the strings even for his sons the whole time. Moving on to numbers 33, 15, and 9. These were all the starting numbers for each of the Arclight sons respectively Trey, Quattro, and Quentin. Seems likely then that these are also numbers given to Vectrix by the Baryons, one to give to each son in the hopes that they would start their hunting. Quentin obviously only had one, so works the best there. 15, I mean, Quattro had two others, but I think this would be the first one to start his gimmick puppet career with. And 33, I think this would be the first one to really kickstart Trey's chronometry numbers. So to that degree, I would still argue that these are first split numbers. Now, 36 might be the most complicated number in my entire theory. I absolutely hate digging into this number because it's the most interpretable number ever. 36 is used in the Arc 5 Tag Force special. This is used by Trey. And as we can clearly see by the artwork, it's the core of number 33. Not to mention, it's clearly related to Trey in that 33, 36, and 6, it's definitely the mid-ground between them. But Trey never uses this card in the anime. Trey never gives up anything but 33 and 6 to Yuma. Does it after Yuma defeats him. And in episode... let's see... in the episode where Trey joins up with Yuma to defeat Mr. Heartland and Goon, Yuma gives back number 33 and number 6. Doesn't give back number 36. So that implies that Yuma doesn't know that Trey had this number, or that he didn't care. The more plausible theory, technically, I suppose, would be that after Yuma gave back 33 and 6, during that time before the Baryon Emperor onslaught, Trey, just like Anna and Nistro, got 81 and 86, in my theory. Trey got 36, maybe it landed on him. But that wouldn't work considering that when we finally did the final accounting, given all the first split numbers versus second split numbers, my bad. Given that at the end of the World Tour Carnival, Astral has 50 numbers, that means that 36 has to be included in those 50, just based on all that we've already discussed and the couple that we will discuss in a moment here. So that means 36 has to be in the Vectrix family possession. And under my theory, Trey has to have had it in his deck at one point. So my best theory for working with this is that Trey didn't fashion it himself. Vectrix fashioned this just like he did number 6. Vectrix might have slipped it into Trey's deck at some point, but Trey either never knew about it, or never focused into it, or just didn't remember when he lost to Yuma. Thereby, when Trey finally returned, similarly how when Quattro didn't give up his numbers to Shark and he just returned to the bedside, Vectrix then took Quattro's numbers from him. I would argue then that Vectrix took number 36 back from Trey. Thereby, it was in Trey's deck at one point, fulfilling the Arc 5 Tag Force Special incorporation, and fulfilling that Trey didn't know about it, and Yuma didn't know about it. Again, it's very difficult, but it's the only way that I can fit it in. So I'd say it's a first split number fashioned by Vectrix and slipped into Trey's deck at some point. That leaves the last three, 18, 40, and 88. If you've been tallying it up, these all have to be second split numbers, which works just fine for me. Number 18, Vectrix has in the Arc 5 Tag Force Special, so he's got to have it at some point, definitely before the end of the World Tour Carnival, based on my 50 numbers at the end of it theory, or confirmed in the show. However, Vetrix could have easily gotten this just from the second split. Maybe it landed near the Vetrix family. Same with 40 and 88. All that's really required is that he gave Quattro a number to start with, and then these two could have easily landed near them. And since Trey, Vetrix has plans for him with number 6 and 36, and Quentin doesn't seem to care whatsoever much about number hunting. He's just focused on his science. He's letting Quattro deal with all the number hunting. Seems likely that they would let Quattro have 40 and 88. 3 numbers landed nearby. Well, Vetrix will keep 1 just because he's Vetrix, and Quattro can have the other 2 to improve his deck chances as the number 1 number hunter. So to that degree, I'd say that these are all second split numbers. When you total up, this is a perfect 50-50 of first split, second split numbers. So in that sense, the only numbers that would be required for Don 1000 to access the Numeron code are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 14, 15, 21, 22, 23, 28, 32, 33, 35, 36, 37, 38, 43, 44, 46, 50, 53, 54, 58, 62, good luck getting that one, 64, 65, 66, 69, 70, 71, 73, 75, 77, 78, 79, 80, 84, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 97, 98, 99, and 100. If he had all of those, he could access the Numeron code without all of the other ones. Now, if you were paying attention, here is my theory on the 50 numbers that Astral had at the end of the World Duel Carnival, those outlined in purple. Would have had to have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 22, 24, 25, 26, 27, 29, 30, 32, 33, 34, 36, 39, 40, 41, 42, 45, 49, 50, 51, 53, 55, 56, 59, 60, 61, 69, 73, 74, 76, 83, 85, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, and 96. Woof. This is the culmination of studying the ZEXAL anime, manga, games, and the Arc 5 anime. It's not easy to put it all together. I wish I could have compiled it into a shorter video, but this is all the evidence really I've got going for it. Again, some of the numbers are highly interpretable. You want to reinterpret 57, 67, 68 to say 45, 60, 41, 26. Regardless, they would still count as second split. They just be in different owners based on the different images and different contexts that you deem the best for yourself. But if we keep with the rules that the specific number holders that we see in the games, anime, and manga are the ones holding these, and the stories are roughly the same, we can incorporate the timelines into this massive big one, and ignoring the end of the manga with dealing with Era, focusing on the chaos thing, provides a little irreconcilable complications there, but the number theory still remains intact. So with that, I thank you for watching, and here is the final culmination of all 100 numbers being placed into their respective position of either first split, second split. Again, first split marked by the red, second split marked by the blue. Thank you for watching, and I hope you found this rather enlightening, even if it did take forever.